Hey everyone, this is Sycra, and I'm with Flavia, and we decided to do a stream thing, but not quite. We're contemplating whether or not to do a stream, and realized in the end that there are some pretty severe disadvantages to doing a stream because you end up catering heavily towards an audience and you think less about what your point is and having a specific point. You end up rehashing topics over and over again. And for me personally, I don't speak clearly. I don't speak as I do normally. Guess we can just continue. But anyway, you're saying?
When your audience is big enough, it sort of takes away from substance that you can convey.
Yeah.
Like your message can only be so diluted before it loses meaning.
Almost by definition. Plus you get a lot of people who are new to the format or new to, I don't know, just the videos themselves, and they're not aware of something, so of course it's no fault of their own that they would bring questions that have been answered, but it does make it so you can't talk as freely about what you want to talk about because you're spending a lot of time rehashing previous topics.
You're spending a lot of your brain energy just thinking about what the audience is thinking because they can't be as involved as the people in a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And if they were to be involved, imagine what sort of a cacophony it would be.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get anywhere, and this happens with groups as well, and just in real life.
Yeah. Plus you have to edit yourself to talk differently. For myself anyway. I switch to someone who is more, I would say, engaging, but it's not something I find engaging. It's more I can't even say it's nervous, because it does have a point. It has the effect of creating more variety in tone and perhaps being more relatable.
I think the thing you switch into is more musical. Go more like a tune to follow.
Yeah.
Than let's put together ideas and see which wins, and this is an argument, and this is a debate, and this is a thing. It's more of a trill.
Yeah, it's sort of designed to keep attention as well, so that there is I am talking now and doing this, and though you may not be paying attention to what I'm saying, it is going somewhere.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking of music, because I think Beethoven did that. He was...
while speaking?
No, not while speaking, but I think there was this thing that I read about him, that he was angry at audiences being like dozing off and stuff, and then he would
purposely put things in. Yeah. Well, that's something pretty necessary. But yeah, one of the issues lately that I've been dealing with, and Flavia can attest to this because she has to listen to me whine about it a lot.
Sure can.
Just what to do with my channel and who my audience is. Because I initially had a very clear understanding of what I was doing. I was making videos to teach stuff to someone who was in the same position as I was and struggling really hard. And I wasn't making any money off it, so there was no, I don't know, what would you call it? Contamination?
Oh.
Mm-hmm. No payoff.
I don't know.
Well, literally there was no payoff because I wasn't making money, but no, there was a payoff in that, I get to feel like I am helping somewhat, because there's also strong feeling that I have no idea what I'm talking about, and why would I presume to teach when I myself know so little. However, that became somewhat diluted when I did start to monetize my videos. And at first it was still so small that freelance work was primarily my source of income, and YouTube was always a on the side thing. And then as I got more income, it became I don't need to do so much freelance. I can edit my base of clients, and I don't know if one would call that cocky, because it leads to I get freedom to make choices that allow me to do what I'd rather do, which is I'd rather make videos than, I don't know, do some illustration commission. Usually, not always, but usually.
The freedom isn't free. You gain freedom in one area, but you have to lose it in another.
Like what?
Well, you lost the freedom to be, I don't know, more uncensored, I feel, with your YouTube, because you gain more freedom in editing your client base.
Yeah, and there was also the...
It's
what?
a toka-coca.
Toka-coca. There's also the requirement, like it becomes necessary to make a video then, because you need to continue earning anything. And then, I don't know, 2 years ago, I guess, the earnings started dropping 2 or 3 years ago. And that was not because I wasn't getting more views, or not because I wasn't getting more subscribers, but just because of YouTube and the way there were more advertisers putting the same amount of money in, but it was being distributed to more and more YouTubers. Therefore, each YouTuber earns less. And so it was like, okay, so this is going down, although everything else is going up. And I need to figure out what to do about that. But by then, I had already, I don't know if I just wasn't taking as many jobs. And especially when I changed my style, because that was, again, a thing for me. It was realizing I'm not doing things for myself. And I guess I was used to that. But then, I'm not sure, do you think it's cultural? Why I would want to do things? Because there's this thing in culture about, do you, be yourself, instead of do what is necessary to earn a living no matter what it takes.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the culture I was brought up in, is more the latter, where it's, you just work.
Yeah, I think there's been a shift in the past 2 decades towards the be yourself and follow your dream, and but the problem is it's shifted to that from do what's necessary, but it's shifted to the exclusion of do what's necessary. So there's no real grounding for do your own thing and follow your dream and figure yourself out, but it's not grounded in responsibility. That's a problem.
Yeah, and there's also this, I feel anyway, that there's a compromise that a lot of people make, which is, well, I want to sort of do this thing. I want to sort of be involved with cartoons because I like cartoons, or I want to sort of be involved in the entertainment industry because I like video games, or I like movies. Or rather, I would like to be involved. I would like this to be my job. But you can't have everything. So then the trade-off is, but I have to remember I'm just a tool. Or I have to remember that this is not art. Or I have to just be glad that I have a job in the industry.
It's a more subtle trade-off, as opposed to, I don't know, do what's necessary as in work hard in an unrelated job for 10 years and then save up money and then do your own project afterwards, because it's immediate gratification and there is a huge trade-off, but you can be not aware of it. The culture makes it so that you don't have to be You can say, yeah, I'm in the industry even though I'm not doing art. Or if I'm doing art, this feels soulless. But I'm still in the industry. You get all the benefits of socializing with peers, and it's reinforced this image of, yeah, I'm an artist, but are you doing art? No, I'm not.
Yeah, and it creates a toxic thing as well, because there's this sense of you're spending a lot of, perhaps it's unconscious, but a lot of energy justifying things.
Mm-hmm.
Like justifying why, oh, I'm not really happy, and yet I'm in the industry, and I kind of hate what I'm doing, but no, I shouldn't complain because I get to do this, and then I get fans, and I get popularity, and this and that, which is not really something that I guess I had to deal with because I never got big enough.
But do you see how those are two separate voices? And one of them is in your own, which is, I'm not really happy. And the other one is an internalized version of what the industry tells you. Oh, you shouldn't be, that's a top-down thing. You shouldn't be complaining because of this. You shouldn't because you get to draw for a living. What more do you want? What more? Why aren't you content? That's the voice of a higher up, be it like, oh, a parent, like, oh, why aren't you happy with this? Or you get to do art for a living. What more do you want? Yeah. But your own voice is sort of opposing, and it never seems to win. Your own, oh, I'm not really that happy doing this, but oh, yeah, wow, I should shut up because aren't I being entitled and aren't I being ungrateful? And
yeah, so in the end, I suppose, I've come to the conclusion that I will likely lose a lot of subscribers if I be more myself, or at least one aspect of myself, because if you have seen my video about my secret sketchbook video, you will know that I have a dissociative disorder, which means that the me talking right now is not the only me, and there are multiple instances of me. And it seemed very much that I would have to adopt an entertaining persona to satisfy the larger audience that I was getting, because I was getting a larger audience. And I mean, it's something that I have come to terms with and have decided that I would rather cater to a smaller audience, even if it means, it does mean I would likely lose earnings or viewers or whatever, just so I can talk about things that are important to me. And things that are important to me are not necessarily art-related directly, but I feel like they are indirectly. So, for instance, psychology is super, super important to me. And I feel like most art problems are, or a lot of them, maybe not most, but a lot of them are related to psychology. And most of the questions I get, people asking me, should I go to art school, or should I do this, or should I do that? A lot of it has to do with that. And so, to me, that is very important. And I want to talk about that. I find that interesting. I want to talk about things like ideas, and have debates, and have disagreements with people, but it doesn't mean that we're not friends, or that disagreeing is bad, because it feels more and more that there is this idea that if you disagree with someone, then you have beef with them, that there is some kind of issue.
Do you think that's really an idea? I feel like it's more of a reaction or an emotion. It feels more like a response. Because logically speaking, you can't equate, having an idea of your own to, I have this idea because I'm aiming to hurt this other person. But I feel like a lot of people just react. Oh my god, you have an idea that contradicts my own idea, therefore you're out to get me. Mm-hmm. But I don't feel like that's even an idea in and of itself. It's just a response. It's just a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess. I don't know. I wanted to talk a lot about stuff like this, because Flavia has been helping me a ton with figuring out psychology. And one of the reasons I was hesitant to go into psychology, into talks about psychology, not necessarily into a career of psychology, because the reason I wasn't interested in doing that is just because of the university system. I did not want to go through university, and it seemed a lot of it was irrelevant, and I have I have a low tolerance for bullshit, and it seemed like I'd have to go through a lot.
Your reason for not wanting university was the same reason I had for not wanting art.
Yeah.
There's bullshit everywhere.
Yeah, there's bullshit everywhere. That's true. But I have managed to avoid quite a bit of bullshit in art because I'm teaching and I get to spout my own bullshit.
Yeah, but that goes for me in university as well.
Yeah. But going back to what I was saying, one of the reasons I was hesitant to talk about psychology is because of this idea of what psychology has become. I won't say it's a stigma because it's not that anymore. It's not that there is a stigma of, oh, you're talking about this thing that you shouldn't be talking about. Rather, it's that the idea of psychology itself has been eroded, I feel. So when I used to think about psychology, I thought it is about understanding your mind. And what I saw is what was being perceived as psychology was helping you to, adapt to society or become well-adjusted. And that's not really the same thing to me. Understanding yourself as opposed to being well-adjusted. Well-adjusted, well, you could be well-adjusted to anything. Doesn't mean it's a good thing. Whereas understanding yourself seems like it's always a better thing. You have more knowledge, you can make better choices. But there's this idea that, first of all, there seems to be a split between psychology that is popular these days, and it revolves around either cognitive behavioral therapy or dialectic behavioral therapy, which is, to my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of it has become very much dealing with issues by desensitizing them and not looking for the root causes, but rather dealing with the present issue, and by overcoming that issue, you will then rewire your brain so that you will no longer have that issue.
Yeah, if you want to put it more broadly, it's just symptomatic treatment.
Mm-hmm.
You're not treating the disease, you're treating the symptoms. So if you have a cold, you're not going to treat the virus, you're just going to treat the runny nose, and that's it. And then the underlying cause is still there, and if it doesn't come out in a cold, it'll come out in, your wounds taking longer to heal or other areas.
Yeah, so there seems to be that approach, and then there is the psychiatric pharmaceutical approach, which is just throw drugs at it. Oh, I have this, throw drugs at it, which again is missing the point. And because of the profits gained from the pharmaceutical approach, there is more benefit for a doctor to have more patients, to have more people diagnosed with a condition. So you end up with tons of people who are diagnosed with ADD.
It's an industry in and of its own.
So many people are diagnosed with autism, with Asperger's, with and they don't actually have that.
And even if they do, the view is that, you are being diagnosed with this, therefore we need to treat you. However, with autism, it's usually an ADD, and a lot of these disorders that keep popping up and rising, they are a response to the change in reality. So reality gets overwhelming, and you're not questioning, is this good or bad in terms of, is reality good or bad? You're looking at, you have a problem, therefore we need to fix you.
Yeah, which goes back to being well-adjusted.
Yeah, because if you think about it, your dissociation is also you becoming well-adjusted to a bad reality, to a traumatic reality that kept going on and on and on.
Yeah,
and on.
That's why it's coping mechanisms. You're coping with what?
Yeah.
being maladjusted to a situation. Yeah. So there's that. And then on the other hand, there is also this pseudopsychology, like the Dr. Phil types, the whole self-help, new age healing, and a lot of this as well is very dealing with the symptoms and not really the cause. And then when you talk about psychoanalysis, often the image that is conjured is one of Freud. And, that's a lot of that is nonsense. And so this is just psychobabble.
Well, when you talk about a field of study and the image that is conjured is a guy that lived however many decades ago, that's a problem, because you're restricting a lot of what it means or what you can get from it or what it entails, because it's just one guy who, sure, put a lot into the base of it, did a lot of advancements and whatever to it, but he's not all there is, and his approach was pretty narrow-minded if you think about it in the span of things.
Yeah, it was very limited. But the issue, again, it's not so much what is and isn't real, it is more the perception. And if the perception of psychology is any one of these things, I feel like it diminishes it. But it's also, see, when I was in therapy, the approach that was used on me was Rogerian approach, which is very hands-off. The idea is you are trying to get the patient to figure out their own problems through positive regard, unconditional positive regard. So if I come with whatever feelings, you, as a therapist, accept those. And there's a lot of, I'm pissed off because this person said this to me. And then there's a lot of, so how did that make you feel? And it's like, it's not active. It is, or at least it doesn't feel active. But the way Flavia has been talking to me is not really that.
It's definitely hands-on.
Well, yeah, it's a lot more actually confronting me with an issue or with an observation. And you were telling me earlier about how psychologists can't really compete with family members.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of this, a lot of the current situation in terms of what the status of a therapist is in a patient's life is it's an outside person who has very limited responsibility and very limited interactions with you. So all it is that they can see is what you tell them. Or sometimes maybe if you do couples therapy, what your spouse or your significant other tells them. Or in maybe what your child tells them in family therapy. But it's very, very limited. They get to see or hear about you an hour a week or 2 hours a week if you're doing more. Even if they see you if you're in a hospital or something, it's still very, very limited. You're out of your element, so they don't get to see a lot of the inner workings of your life and why you respond the way you respond. Is this a warranted response, or is this not? Because when you came to Romania, I was able to see a lot of your responses and why you were acting the way you were acting. However, it was only once we got here to Canada that I saw you in the context of your family, and I saw where it was coming from and where these behaviors are learned. Because they're learned, because they're coping mechanisms that you as a child develop. Yeah.
And I remember, I've talked to people about this before, where I explained that, a lot of this goes back to your childhood, and there's this huge resistance. No. And I think I had this too, earlier on, there's this. No, it's not about that. It's about what is happening right now.
Of course, because if you are to accept that, you need to also accept what comes with it, which is your agency is more limited than you suspected it to be.
You didn't have a choice in this.
Yeah.
And things are happening to you, and you have no control over them.
So you were already powerless, which is why you came up with these coping mechanisms, and now you have to own it. I'm even more powerless. Of course I'm not going to take it. Of course I don't want to.
Yeah. Unless I suppose you want to be, you're the type of person who is very comfortable being the victim or in a victim role, which I am not. Anyway, so, because of that, I don't know. Anyway, so there is this resistance to accepting that. But when it's shown to you, and Flavia's talked to a few of my friends now, and has exposed things that it's like you can't argue with it when you see where it's coming from. It's like, oh no. And for me, lately it's been very difficult because I've been confronted with things that show me to be, I have traits that are from my parents that I don't like. And I thought, oh, I'm different. I'm doing my own thing. I'm very like, oh, I'm not affected, or I might have been affected, but not anymore. And to find out that, no, you still are. And even though you think you're getting better, you still have all this stuff, which is almost identical to what they have, or else is directly because of what they've done. It's a very disgusting feeling, but it's also something that it's much better than not knowing, I feel. And when we arrived, Flavia and I, to Canada, I don't really know much about my history, I suppose. And so it's become this thing of sort of just dealing with myself regardless, figuring out, well, okay, so I have these problems, and let me deal with them. I don't know where they came from, but I know I have them. And again, a symptomatic approach. And when we came, we actually talked to, Flavia was able to really talk to my dad, and we found out his story. And I don't know if it's good or bad to go into detail about it, because I've shared my story, and so you kind of get a sense of where I'm coming from. But with his story, what do you think?
I think it's a good idea to mention it because it connects in a lot of points.
Okay, so with my dad growing up, he was given a lot of responsibility at a very young age.
The oldest.
Oldest male in the family. And he was given a lot of responsibility. They had like a shop, and he had to take care of, run the shop. And
he was 8.
Yeah, when he was 8. And just a lot of tasks that he wasn't equipped for, but he had to do anyway. And then he got, I don't know what the order of things is, but he got sent to a boarding school
soon after,
and
to another village.
Mm-hmm. And again, he didn't understand why, and his siblings weren't. So
he was pretty much singled out and sent away from the family. And then at some point, in the boarding school, he was bullied because of the...
Yeah, there's this thing where his dad took on the family name of this other family. But because of that other family, or members of that other family, didn't consider them real members. And so he would get bullied a lot for that. And
so your dad was basically a kid who was sent away from his family, torn away from his family to which he was very attached.
Yeah.
And then taken away, sent away to another village, bullied, always sort of mistrusted and cast away. And then his family moved away, and they didn't tell him that they moved.
Yeah, they didn't tell him. And what happened? How did he find out?
He found out from some people at the boarding school who asked him, so how are your family doing in their new town? And he didn't even know they'd moved.
Yeah, they didn't even send a letter saying, oh, hey, by the way, we're...
Or word of mouth or anything. Just
and so there's
a lot of issues with
abandonment issues, of you don't know what's going on. You care about these people, and yet they are not really showing the same back to you.
Yeah, and his dad used to come to do the shopping in the village where his boarding school was, and then not talk to him, not look at him, and just ignore him, and then leave.
Yeah.
So.
And there was also a lot of, violent things he witnessed.
Witnessed his teacher being cut up.
Yeah.
Well,
his teacher... No, that's a person who stole something, got cut up. His teacher.
His friend.
Yeah, his teacher was in a car accident, and then his limbs were scattered. Yeah. And he had to deal with that. And, just a lot. Like,
and
there
no
was
comfort throughout. No comfort.
There was a lot of this. And, okay, so how it started. Because I wanted to know his story, and we asked him if he could tell his story. And so it was me, Flavia, my mom, and my dad. And we're sitting at a table. And in the beginning, he couldn't start. Like, he was trying to think of how to explain his story. And he just started crying. And so when I saw how, this is so painful that you cannot even express it. You can't find words. And with my mom, she was very closed off, just acting like wouldn't make eye contact, no consolation, no feeling of what was going on. And I was pissed off because I felt like I don't want to comfort him. He has done so much harm to me. And yet, seeing how my mom was not comforting at all, eventually got up and had to, comfort him and, put my hand on his back and let him know, like, it's okay, we're here for you and stuff. But my mom was utterly unresponsive, and I felt really ashamed. Like, here is someone who is finally, he had never told his story to anyone. Ever. In his life. Like, so many things, just and never.
He's 60 now?
Yeah. Over 60. And it's like, or 60, yeah. Just holding that, witnessing such violence and, like, death and abandonment and just, and not being able to say it, not being able to talk about it. And so anyway, I was very mad at my mom. I told her as much, that I was ashamed of how she was behaving. And she just crossed her arms and stuff. And
she left the room.
Eventually she left. When he started talking about his story, she got up and left. Because I suppose it was too much for her. But she did
listen to
she
it
did
from
listen from afar, from another room. Or at least parts of it. And anyway, so he started talking about his story, and then it was like, oh, okay, so this is, he was constantly abandoned, but more so, he was given jobs that were too big for him to do in a way, but he rose to the occasion. So he was responsible when they moved to, well, they didn't move to England, they were kicked out of their country, and they had to relocate to England. He ended up working and supporting the family, and he was 15 or 16, something like that, and just going from job to job and supporting all the other, like, his parents. And okay, so when he was supposed to leave to go from Uganda to Britain, first of all, he was on the train going back to his hometown, and people who were Asian at this point in Uganda, the Asians were being evicted from Uganda because the Africans led by Idi Amin were, or they said that the Asians are taking your money, they're taking your jobs, they're taking
But by
everything.
Asians, you also mean
I mean Indians, yeah. And so we have to get rid of them and make Africa for Africans. And when he was on the train, he had a lot of African friends, or he had more African friends, and the Africans were telling him, like, why are you going back to your town? They're going to kill you. And he didn't even know. He didn't know all of this was going on, that his own, like, people like him were being singled out and they were going to be killed. And so, anyway, when he went to his village to help out, he had to get a passport, a British passport, so that he'd be able to go to England. And his dad didn't go and sent him instead to get the passport. And so he had to sleep outside and then wait and get the passport. But he didn't get his own passport.
Yeah.
And
just his dad's passport.
So they weren't even going to let him leave the country.
Yeah.
And just a lot of stupid stuff. And then again, yeah, so in England, he had ended up getting all these jobs and supporting the family. And then with his mom, she was very distant, but kept everything together. Like, always did work, but never really said anything bad. But there was a time when he had a job, and he actually moved to a higher position. He became like a junior manager thing. Mm-hmm. And people around were very racist because he sort of moved up the ranks pretty quickly because he could figure things out very quickly.
That's how he got the job in the first place.
Yeah, because he went with his dad, and his dad was supposed to get the job. And it was some kind of...
printing thing?
Yeah, printing thing.
Printing press.
Yeah, and the guy who was in charge was demonstrating, okay, this is what we need you to do, and he did a demonstration, and then his dad was supposed to do it, and then my dad's dad was supposed to get that job, and then my dad saw that, oh, you missed a step, and then the guy who was giving the job was impressed, like, oh, you actually know how to do this. And then it's like, yeah, I was paying attention or whatever. So he ended up getting the job instead of his dad. And then people were pretty racist around that time. And so he had some of the coworkers told him straight up, if you come back to work tomorrow, be careful crossing the street or something. Yeah. You might not make it. And just a lot of
adversity.
Yeah, basically. And then he told them eventually, like, the way to get it, he got out of it was he just told them, like, oh, if like I'm in a higher position than you, so if you're nice to me, I can do things for you. I can make your life easier. But if you're mean to me, what's that going to get you? And they kind of understood the reason behind it. We're sort of okay. So he had, again, more and more jobs, and then he ended up from one place to another place to this. Eventually, his mom was working in the same place as him, but she was in a janitorial type job, but in the same company, and he was pretty high up. And then someone was complaining that she wasn't working hard, and he got very offended because he knew that she worked really, really hard. So he
wasn't just her, though. It was apparently the Indians and Pakistani. Mm-hmm. They were all like rounded up, and then, oh, you fire these people because they're not working hard, and just a racist thing.
Mm-hmm. And so he went to his boss and he told them, "Oh, if you're gonna fire my mom, then fire me first." And then when he was telling that, he started crying and realized, like, oh, this is very hard for him as a memory. He has this idea of standing up for his mom, and anyway, so from my point of view, what I saw when I was growing up with him is he had a job in England, and he would come home on the weekends and he would beat me up and he would beat my mom up, and then he was always angry, and we moved to Canada, and then he was supposed to renew his engineering license, but he didn't, and he just became sort of a deadbeat who took up some small jobs while my mom was working. I think 7 was her... 6 or 7 jobs, and then like 5 regularly after. And then he went back to England while my mom was still working. And so, and then for the next rest of his life, he never did anything really professional. Like, he was a salesman, a door-to-door salesman for vacuums, encyclopedias, and salad master, like cutlery, knives, and pots and pans and things. And then after he started tutoring physics and math, which is something, but for like high school kids, which is pretty much like beneath what he could do. But I just saw him as someone who didn't try, didn't make any efforts, didn't push himself. And the reality after learning his story is, oh, this is why you spent your entire childhood being an adult, supporting people and going through all this stuff, and eventually you just snapped. And it was like, you would not, probably when he came to Canada and they didn't accept his credentials, it was one straw, like it was a straw that broke the camel's back. It's just, they're not accepting you, they're not accepting you, they're not accepting you. You have to fight so hard to prove yourself.
And how long until you've had enough?
Yeah, and the people around you who are benefiting don't recognize you. Nobody cares that you're doing this. Nobody seems... They expect it from you, but they don't treat you like you're actually something. And, yeah, it's understanding just, oh, okay, so this is what was happening. And yeah, of course he would be mad coming home from work. I can't forgive him for that, but I can understand it. Because, I mean, I was the recipient of that anger. And for both my parents, because my mom had her own thing, which is, but both of them had a complete lack of affection.
Growing up.
Yeah. No hugs, no...
The next day after he told us his story, the next day we talked to your mom, and then she told us her story. And her story also involved, she didn't get hugs when she was growing up, she didn't get affection, she didn't really get to express any feelings or receive any compassion or anything. She was also expected to do things and work and not really much else.
Yeah,
so she never learned to pass on love. But
she had friends who were Hindu, and she was told by her family, no, you cannot be friends with Hindus because they're not good people. And just stuff like not having a choice. She was told to marry my dad.
Yeah, a lot of broken dreams.
Yeah.
A lot of... You wanted this type of life, but then the life you got is...
And with my dad, it's a case of... Because I was always wondering, like, how do you fit in with my mom? It doesn't really seem to make sense. But he told us that when he was still in Africa, and he was young, he would go to my mom's family were kind of like caretakers of the Kane, which is like a temple or something. And then... he would go there and they would give him food.
From the boarding school.
Yeah. Yeah, he would come there from the boarding school and they would give him, I think so anyway, but they would give him sweets and food and stuff. And he felt like that was the one place he felt cared for and safe. And so it's like, oh, that's why you were attracted to my mom. You had these associations between when did you feel safe in your life? Oh, when you were with my mom's family. In that environment. So what got created is this, I feel good around this person. Not that this person makes me feel good in any other way, but more like an association. And so it really, it's like, oh, okay, so this is becoming more clear. Again, my mom didn't have, both of them, see, the thing I learned to hate the most is this thing I was brought up with my whole life, which is forgive and forget. This was their mantra, really, is forgive and forget. And I just felt it was a very evil thing, because what you're...
like forget and excuse.
Yeah, it just felt you're making excuses for things, and you're sweeping things under the rug, and you're not dealing with any of your problems. And no one who hurt you gets the blame for it. But the people around you who had nothing to do with this are exposed to your anger or your resentment. And so it's very much something that I can't stand. Forgive and forget. I think it's just evil. I mean, I don't know.
But it's also what ignorance causes.
Yeah.
When you don't know where your anger comes from, or where you don't know where to put it. You don't know where it's due.
Especially when you've been brought up not to put it in its due. Like, you are angry at your parents, but your whole culture tells you you must respect your parents.
Yeah. Creates this conflict within you.
Yeah, you have anger towards your parents, but you must respect them. So what happens? The anger is still there, but it cannot go towards your parents, which is where it's due, and so it goes out elsewhere. And what they do is this very... Like, I really hate the Indian culture for this, and not everyone in it, of course. You know, there are good Indian parents, but it's pervasive in the sense of it's very bottom. It goes from the top down. Like, your parents treat you poorly. You must respect them, so you have bottled up anger. So you give it to your kids. Then they must respect you, so they give it to their kids. And so on and so on. It just goes down and down and down. And... yeah, with my mom, she's very passive aggressive, very, I don't know, not direct,
bitter, and
very bitter, lacking compassion, even more so than my dad, I think. And for myself, it's a case of, oh, I have those traits, and then my dad has a very quick to get angry, very violent, very, I don't know.
Short fuse.
Yeah. And I have that as well. So it's like, oh, I have both of your coping mechanisms. And then with my brother and sister, they develop different coping mechanisms. And it's like, oh, it all makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, when you see it all together. And even, because after your parents' story, we talked to your brother's siblings and...
My brother's siblings? My brother.
Your dad's siblings.
Oh, my dad's siblings, yeah.
Yeah. When we went to a family meeting where we sort of brought up the topic. And it was the two of us, your brother, your mom and dad, your dad's brother, his wife, and his niece.
No, his daughter. Your dad's brother,
his
niece. Wife. Yes. You said your dad's brother, his wife, meaning your dad's brother's wife.
Yes, and their daughter.
His daughter.
And their daughter, yeah. Yeah. So we sort of brought up the topic of just family history and how it's not really...
Well, it was my mom who actually brought it up.
Yeah, she did. And she brought it in her own indirect way, which is she told them that, I quote, maybe she wants to tell you something, which was referring to me. No,
she said maybe she wants to tell you something.
I can't do the accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she snapped. She desperately wanted to be heard, and she's wanted to be heard for so many decades now since she moved to Canada. But she never got to it. And even now, when she got it, she couldn't say it directly. I want you to hear my story. I want you to listen to me. She told them that I want to tell them something. Which was, okay, I was pretty much on the spot, but we had to accommodate her in a way. Because she can't directly confront anything because she has no coping mechanisms for affections or for receiving positive things. Like, she doesn't know how to celebrate, or she doesn't know how to be happy for a happy event.
And neither do I.
Yay! Yes, it goes to show. Neither do I. I have no coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Inappropriate response.
Yeah. Like, if something good happens, I actually don't know what to do about it. If something bad happens, I'm very good with knowing what to do. It's like,
and so is she.
Yeah, I can deal with bad things. I can be compassionate when someone's hurt.
Yeah.
But if someone's fine, it's like, don't know. So it's almost like my brain is geared to find the negative, find what's shitty about this, and then create a problem. You can deal.
It's not almost as that is what's happening.
Yeah.
You are looking for familiar things that you have adequate responses to just in day-to-day life. It's like, oh, this is what you look at a picture. Oh, I see a flaw. Oh, now I can talk about this flaw because I know how to talk about flaws. But
yeah,
you don't know necessarily how to say, yeah, this picture makes me feel nicer. This situation is nicer. Oh, we're moving. Yay. That's all you can muster.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. I remember the first time I had like a certain chocolate that my teacher, Charlene, Anyway, not going to go into that in too much detail. She gave me I put it in my mouth and then I got angry. And I was like, what is this? What is this?
Warfare.
Just, what is this feeling? And then I thought about it. I'm like, oh, I think it's good. Like, oh, this is good. But my first thing wasn't like, great. It was like anger. Just, what is this?
Ew. You eat fish.
Oh, so my mom, she's very prejudiced against like everything. And so her response to things is like, so if you, for instance, you say, oh yeah, I had Japanese food. You had Japanese food? What, they eat, it's raw. They eat raw fish. Gross. And then I'm like, yeah. And then, so I got to this thing of like, she would, I used to date a Taiwanese girl and would go out and she's like, yeah, so what did you eat then? Where did you go? Chinese place or Japanese place or what? And I said, yeah, we went and we ate spiders. Spiders and slugs and so, gross. I can't eat those things.
Yeah,
just trolling her.
Just if you see the parallels and if you see like, oh, her prejudice is not really prejudice, that's the outcome, but it's just fear.
Ignorance.
No, it's fear. It's a lot of fear. Both your parents have a lot of fear, but it comes out in different ways. Like, we were talking yesterday about your dad's people-pleasing things and how it sort of connects with your people-pleasing.
Yeah, because my dad was getting pissed off. Because, okay, so we went to...
He was getting anxious. He wasn't getting pissed off.
Fine. We went to a Home Depot, and Flavia was, like, looking through things. And
Home Depot, yay!
Like, just looking at... And I saw him getting, like, antsy. And I wanted to tell her, like, stop looking at things. It makes him pissed off. But I didn't understand why it made him pissed off. But I just know from being a child around this person, you do not look at things, you do not touch things, you do not do these things. And Flavia was just like, oh, this is cool. And he was getting more and more frustrated. And then, so then Flavia explained to me why after the fact. So what was your explanation?
Well, first of all, there's also a history of you having a very similar reaction to things. Like, I will look at something, or I will notice something, or I will mention a place, or...
Oh, yeah, you mentioned a restaurant. And
a restaurant, yeah. And then you got angry and nervous and, like, very anxious about it. And then, you wanted to go to this restaurant. It's like, no, I just wanted to map out the location because it was a new, we were in a new building, so I wanted to know, whereabouts are we compared to this place that I already know?
Yeah, we needed to be somewhere else at a certain time.
Yeah. So, based on that, in your head, it went something like, I'm mentioning this restaurant, but you want to please me, as in you would like to take me there, because it's a good restaurant. So, but we don't have time, therefore... there's a shortage of what you can offer, therefore you will get angry. So the outcome that is shown is just the anger. However, the entire process is a need to please, a desire to provide or to offer or to whatever. And it was the same in the Home Depot thing, because I was looking at things, I was picking up things, and for your dad, it was, you're gonna buy this, but I should offer it to you, but I can't afford this, or this is outside of my reach, or this is too big, or how are we gonna do this? And I can't give you this, therefore I will get angry or antsy or just fidgeting or agitated. And that was the only thing that is shown. However, the entire process is different, and if you hear the story, if you're aware of where it comes from, you can have a better understanding of, like, a sort of demystify and drop the interpretations of, he's getting pissed off, this is what he does, or whatever. Because a lot of them are just half-truths. They're not
and
accurate.
it's actually coming from a good place. It's like, he actually wants to give. He wants to be kind.
Yeah.
He just can't, and so he gets frustrated. Yeah, me too. I want to give you things that you like, and it's when I feel like, I can't right now. It's like, I feel so bad, and then reflex, because it's like, I'm feeling so bad, I'm feeling so anxious that I can't give this, and like, why did you make me feel this way? Why did you have to bring this up? If only you didn't have to bring this up.
All the causes are put elsewhere than they really are.
Yeah.
Like, why did you make me feel like this? No. I have this process, and there's a step being sort of skipped in my process.
Yeah.
Where I'm assuming that I am angry, that I am... You're not questioning, do I need to be? Is this realistic? Is this rational? Is this, adequate? An adequate response. You're questioning, why did you have to bring it up? Why did you have to look at that thing? Why did you? So it's just displacing.
And then you create a negative association with the person rather than the...
Yeah, you create a negative association with the person. And even right now, when you were telling, as a child growing up, I learned not to look at things. That's not a good thing to learn as a child. To adopt, a child should look at things. They should ask questions. They should pick up things. They should learn how to manipulate objects. They should learn about the reality around them. Not that, don't look at things. Be afraid of things. Be afraid of the response. If you touch this thing, therefore this will happen. This person who's your parent, who's supposed to be the adult in your life, who's supposed to teach you things, they will respond negatively. That's a super bad thing to have as a child. What are you supposed to? Being well adjusted to this reality means you're gonna be very, very crippled.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's why it's important to learn your history but I mean, what I feel sad about is not everyone has access to someone like Flavia who can explain it, because I went through so many years of therapy and got so little out of it, and then once Flavia came into my life, things became a lot more clear.
But therapists don't really come into your life anymore, and that's because a therapist is what family was supposed to be, what your family elders were supposed to be. They're supposed to have wisdom, and they're supposed to know you, and they're supposed to have weight in your life. They're supposed to have emotional backup, whereas with therapists, you're supposed to not get involved. You're told that your code of ethics is do not get involved, and then how are you going to see what actually goes on in this person's life? How are you actually going to see what they're like around their family? There's so many things you will miss in a therapy session. There's so many things you can't, you can't know how to fix it. You can't know whether this is your trauma, your personal trauma, or whether this is your parents' trauma. Where does it come from? And so long as you're in this house or around your parents, this will get reinforced. Therefore, you can go to therapy for years and years and years, as you went. But you were coming back to this house all the time. So back into the same habits, back into the same, up and downs and...
even when I wasn't at the house, when I was living outside, it was pretty similar.
Yeah. There's a lot of causes for everything, a lot of reasons, and once you grasp those reasons and once you grasp those causes, then you have agency, then you have control, then you have power.
Yeah.
But it's also, you get responsibility.
Well, and the good news is, so anyway, I should probably preface this with what's going on in our lives, because you're saying a lot of information.
Preface.
You're bringing a lot to the table, which is unexplained. And so moved from Romania to Canada. And the reason was Romania wasn't really good for me. And my mom said, why don't you come back to Canada and you can stay with us? And we said, it's pretty, there's not too much room, and we have cats and things. And she's like, you can renovate the basement and just live and don't worry about it. And then it's like, okay, that's a nice offer. But I just thought of it like, if things get worse. But then they kind of were getting worse in Romania. With Flavia's school, it was just not good. They weren't teaching her anything. The teachers weren't showing up. The students weren't showing up. So how do you learn? And just, it was bad. And it was like, this is pointless. We're in this country and we're not really getting anywhere. So moved to Canada, and we're thinking, okay, so let's renovate this basement. And we go downstairs and we look at it, and then she's like, oh, no. And my dad's like, no, we can't do it. It's not the right time to do it. And so it's like, wait, what? Okay, so, well, we'll find a place to rent then. So we got our, we have our budget, and okay, we can rent this much. And then my mom was like, oh, well, why rent? Why not just buy a place? It's like, well, we can't afford a house. We don't have the money for a down payment for a house right now. And then she said, oh yeah, well, I can help you with that. And was like, oh, well,
that's a big thing.
That's something. Never considered that. Never considered having a real house. And just, for people who think I must make a lot of money, no. One of the reasons is because of my own. I don't do well with business, and I have a lot of subscribers, which baffles me why I have that many. A lot of people who view my things, but I also have integrity. And so, whereas some people will be all about pushing a product, I hate that. And the positive is that I get a clean conscience, and I get to feel like I am only talking about stuff I actually believe in. And the positive for my viewers is they get the truth. And the negative is you are not good for business then. You are unpredictable. And you might say something sucks because it sucks. And so that's not good. In terms of pleasing, companies, it's better to be all, yay, they're so great, they're so awesome. I remember seeing a review of a Cintiq companion by a popular YouTuber, and it was just praise, like non-stop praise, just, oh yeah, it's so great, so great. And I have that.
The only con was that it's too good.
Yeah. And I have that companion, and I've used it, and it's like, it's not that great. There are a lot of problems with it. Like, sure, there are some things that are nice, but there are a lot of problems. And then, shortly after, this popular YouTuber gets a
Wacom
sponsorship thing with Wacom. Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah, no shit. You say things like, oh yeah, this is so great, yeah, isn't this, I'm a great mouthpiece. And then you get a deal, and it's like, well, yeah, of course they're not going to give it to someone who would make a video and say, yeah, it's pretty bad in a lot of ways, but it's good in some ways. It's better to have yeah, it's awesome, it's great, amazing. And there seems to be this idea that I keep coming up against with this new, I guess it's the millennials or whatever it is, but anyway, that anything negative is bad. Like, if I criticize something, it is therefore bad. Oh, this is a negative review because you said cons about a thing. And being overly positive is good. If you say, oh, I love this movie and this is great and this is, but if that's good. But if you said this movie is terrible and it's rotting the brains of people, well, yeah, that's okay. So that is negative. But even if you just,
you're so negative, it gets extended to you as a person.
Yeah, you're so negative, and or this argument of, you might point out that something has flaws, and then it's, oh, you're ruining my childhood. It's like, what? I'm doing nothing of the sort. I'm just saying my opinion. How can I ruin your childhood? Unless I am telling you something that you yourself know to be true, but do not want to look at.
Or if your brain is so primed for creating associations that anything negative gets associated to that overwhelmingly positive experience that you had at McDonald's or a Disney movie or whatever decades ago. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't, no, it's too sticky, everything will stick to it, I can't hear anything negative because I can't handle it.
Yeah.
It ruins my positive feeling.
Yeah, so, anyway, what was my point originally?
The jobs, the companies.
Yeah, so I didn't do that, so I don't make much money. And then also switching my style wasn't very good in terms of financial things. Plus, I have a whole slew of psychological problems, which makes it so...
it is. Always have something to talk about.
Yeah. And I also feel like, oh, I'm just making excuses for myself, so I get paralyzed, and then I blame myself, and that doesn't really work out either, because it's not great motivation to think, I suck. Plus, medication doesn't really work on me, plus I don't really buy into a lot of it. I don't think it's necessary, and so far I've been doing very well without it, and I've been doing... I mean, sure, I have my down periods, but when I find out the cause, I actually found out the cause. I didn't just deal with the symptoms. I solved it. It got dealt with. Yeah. Amazing how that works. It's a lot of work and a lot of discomfort, and you get better. Wow. Yeah. To me, it's a difference between, like, yeah, you might need a crutch at times, but if you only rely on the crutch, you are not developing your own strength anymore. And then if you stop using the crutch, you cannot walk on your own. If you use the crutch when you need it to, and then get off it, it might be painful and it might be hard, but eventually you will strengthen your own muscles, and then you will become stronger for it. So, anyway, so that's why. Didn't have that much money. And I mentioned YouTube was going down in terms of earnings, and Patreon is something that I will have to adjust in terms of rely on that more. But yeah, we came here, and then, okay. So, the basement wasn't good, but we weren't allowed to renovate it, but we kept the cats there. And then, one of our cats got really sick because we found out there was mold in the basement, and yay, congratulations, she's very, very sick, and she was in the vets for a few days, and that really pissed me off, because it's like, oh, not only do you say we can come and renovate this place, but you don't allow us to, like, you don't let us do what is good.
For everyone
involved. And so... yeah, the cats are fine now. She was on antibiotics for a while, and vitamins now still. But so anyway, we got this idea of, or my mom said, yeah, you can have this down payment, and I'll help you with that, and you can afford, like, up to like $300,000. I can cover for you. And in Vancouver, there's really nothing at that price, because Vancouver housing prices are super bad, super crazy. Over $1 million is normal. Like, the average price of a house is over $1 million. And that is insane for, like, it's super unaffordable. So we ended up looking around other towns and things. And eventually we found, a town where we could afford things. And we found 3 towns that we could afford things. But they weren't, the best, especially one of them. It had so much smoke. It was just like this industrial factory town, and the name of the hockey team is the Smoke Eaters. And it was like, yeah, this isn't good. We're walking around the town, and around noontime, it just starts to smell, and there's like this smoggy thing, and it's just
worse than Bucharest.
This is not good. This is not good to be inhaling. So anyway, we ended up finding a small town. But the budget was much smaller than what she said. It wasn't $300,000. It was like $150,000 that she could help with. And I'm so grateful that she's helping us with that, because we couldn't do it ourselves. But the thing is, had I not had the offer, I would have stayed in Romania and made do, or we would have rented a place and made do. So it felt kind of like, what? You're just saying stuff. But it's also, I curse my own lack of financial strength, being in a position where it's like, oh, this would actually be a big help. That sucks. But anyway, so we do have a place that we are going to, but we don't move until December 1st. So we're looking forward to that, though.
Yeah.
But it's still a bit over a month away.
Yeah.
So we will be out, but for now, it gives us time to be living with my parents and learning a bunch of stuff that's not necessarily good, but I suppose it is
helping everyone.
It does make things better in the long run. And yeah, my art style is changing again. It's going much more towards what I was doing in 2010, and one of the reasons is that when I started, I had this, I mentioned it in previous videos, I think, and the first time was in the To Become an Artist video. I mentioned how my teacher talked to me about how all my pictures were about power in high school. And then I suddenly didn't want to draw those anymore. And I moved on to wanting to the other pictures I was doing, which was drawing like faces and expressions and stuff. And I started on to try to learn how to draw realistically. And then I eventually got that partially from teachers, but online and private, no school involved. And then I moved towards caricature, and that was good. But then I felt like I was missing animation gesture that I saw animators had. So I went to animation school. And then in animation school, I had to make a film, but I couldn't make it super detailed because there's no way I would have time to do that or patience to do that. So I simplified my characters. And it's like, okay, that was probably when I was still myself, but the last time. Because then after animation school, it was like, wait, you have to get a job now. And I didn't want a job as a rigger in Flash for My Little Pony or whatever, 2D animation that still lives, that's not, actually animated, but it's more cut out, meaning you've got these assets that you put together and form in different ways and then animate those. And so I went to the illustration card art side because I had friends who were doing that. So it became very much following the money, and I did earn money doing that, and that was good, and I was getting more successful, but I wasn't me. And then when I finally realized that, I don't like anything in my gallery, I was already moving to the opposite, which is, well, then what do I like? But because I am multiple and I don't have, different parts of me have different memories, so it's been interesting dealing with relatives, because I'll meet with relatives and suddenly I'll have a bunch of memories that I didn't have before. It's like, oh, I remember this. But normally I don't. So, anyway, so I went into the whole pointy chins thing, which was more like, what do I like? Not necessarily what do I do, but what do I admire? And that personality is coming from his own perspective. And so what he likes is a part of what we all like, but only a slice of that. So his thing was very much anime-ish and simplified and these pastel type colors. And it's nothing that I associated with myself before. So then it was a case of, fine, can you go against your own nature and create something out of nothing? And every artist I had heard until that point had said, no, that's not how you do it. But because I am the way I am, I viewed that as a challenge. Like, we shall see. I will prove that I can do this. And so I figured stuff out, and I created a style that a lot of people hate, but a few people think is pretty cool. And I thought it was okay. But I ended up, especially during this move period of leaving Romania, my art started changing quite a bit to stuff that I used to do a lot, or different personalities drew. And then now I feel like I'm resuming from my 2010, just out of animation school, and develop this further. With all the stuff I learned, mind you, but develop that further. And maybe it'll change again, because it always does. But that's going on as well. And with it comes this desire to be more myself and make videos that are more me, but perhaps less frequently. Increase my Patreon, decrease my YouTube output. But when I do make videos, make sure they are things I really believe in, and not just, you have to make a video this week because you always make a video this week. And in terms of the streams, maybe give the streams a rest, or do them much less frequently, and instead do this kind of podcast format where it's just talking about ideas, because I can actually talk about ideas, and I don't have to be a version of myself that is very draining, because the reality is when I am doing I don't even want to imitate it because I'm afraid of slipping into it. But the other more high energy version of myself, where I also am careful to limit how I say things or the vocabulary I use. That's getting very stifling.
It's normal though. It's all the energy. You put a lot of energy, like that version of you puts a lot of energy into caring about the audience and always being mindful of 1,000 different things at the same time. So where's that energy coming from? It comes from the depth of the topic you can tackle. Yeah.
And so the topic becomes reduced and overly simplified. And you end up saying things almost in a soundbite. I try and make things educational. Yeah, edutainment, where it's education plus entertainment. Like I did the dong face thing, and it was just because it's like, oh, okay, so this resembles kind of balls, and then but it's more like a womb with the ovaries and uterus, but it's like, well, that's going to be too complicated. Dong face is more simple. It should be face dong. Or was it face dong?
Face dong.
Face dong, yeah. But it's just a way of wrapping up a simple idea instead of saying, there are rhythms of the face. You should pay attention to these. Because if I go too complicated and I say, here are all the rhythms of the face, it's information overload, and then you miss the point. Or at least people starting out miss the point. Because it's very, very difficult to be at an early stage and to handle all this information. And so I try and give it in a very bite-sized and hopefully entertaining...
Don't bite the dog.
Well, yeah, it's not what I like, but some people are into that. And then, congratulations. I have no idea what I was talking about.
You're trying to make them more edgy.
No. Realizing that, this is just going to get viewed as one thing. Probably, it's like, I don't want to be this anymore. I don't want to have to cater everything to the lowest common denominator. Because I know a lot of my audience is smarter than that, and they can handle it. And the ones who can't, maybe it's better to be in a different crowd. Like, I cannot say that I'm the best for everyone, or even good for everyone. It's just, like, I can bring what I can bring, and I can be interested in what I'm interested in. And that is not going to be everything. That is, I am not going to be, oh, hey, you are in art, therefore you can help me with anything in art and help me get in the industry. Because it's like, I can't. What do I know about the industry? That's not my thing. I can help you get, to an extent, I can help you get better in drawing. I can give you what I know. I mean, that's as far as I can really go. I can tell you what I know. If you think I am at a level higher than you, then hopefully that can help. Which is why I always say, I hope it helped. I don't say, this will help you. I have no idea. I can't say, this is the ultimate tutorial. You'll learn everything. I did that once with my Photoshop tutorial. But I really did, at the time, feel like, yeah, it was pretty good that I did for Pencil Kings. But overall, it's like, no, I can't tell you everything, but I can just be myself, and I'm going to try and do that. I'm probably going to lose all my subscribers, or at least 75%, but that'll still give me like 100,000, so that's okay.
And that still means whoever wants to stick around really wants to listen to you.
Yeah, that's a difference. It means, oh, okay, there's a smaller but more, what would you say? I don't know the right word. They care more about it.
No, more invested?
Yeah, more invested. Smaller but more invested audience. And I'm pretty sure by this point, anyone who wouldn't be able to handle this would have left by now. Oh, it's too boring. Oh, when are they going to talk about fun stuff? Oh, balls. Oh, Harambe, whatever. Meme of the week. What is it?
Tiring. I bet it must be tiring for them to live. Yeah, I think so. I think it wears down on them.
It's more just than striving for connection.
Yeah, but that's for everyone. I think that's for pretty much everyone in one form or another. But I think it's really draining because what connection this meme culture and whatever it gives you is very, very superficial, and you can't realistically be fulfilled by it. So it's gonna wear you down. It's gonna make you anxious, and it's gonna make you angry, and it's gonna make you disconnected from things. You're pretty much like with your mom, how she doesn't know how to respond to positive things. You're fed memes every day in, day out. How are you gonna know to connect with somebody on a deeper level? So, you can't. You can only say your memes. You can only...
Yeah, here's something similar to what I've experienced, but in meme form, or here's something... even if it's not a meme, it's still a watered-down version of what you are feeling. Like, there's this new emoji thing where people are responding with emojis instead of... I
only knew the GIFs.
There's... and it's probably not new, because by the time I find out anything... there's this new trend, people like this movie. So... anyway. But yeah, again, it's just... Take something complicated and deep, but justifiably deep, and turn it into something superficial
palatable
and just lacking any depth. And it becomes an art form in how to manipulate these to get any sense of depth. But the reality is you are making everything very vague and undefined. And what does that do for you in your life? What kind of life does that breed? It breeds a life that is undefined.
Devoid of personal involvement. Like, if you have your friends, and if in real life you have a circle of friends, and let's say you have 5 friends, or when you get together, you can't really talk about what's troubling you, but you can sort of, that moment when you have to take the trash out, or whatever the current thing is, with the pictures that have the captions, that moment when you have to take the trash out, and you have a face, and it's really, it'll sort of deprive you of actual human connection, although you're really searching for human connection, although you want to, and then you go online, and there's strangers that, you can, as a stranger yourself, you can write your story, and you can write what's troubling you, and it just is so disconnected.
Yeah. But when it's all you've got, it becomes increasingly more important.
Yeah.
And it becomes like, don't badmouth all I've got, because it's all I've got.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I suppose what we're saying could be hurtful to people who are interpreting it as, why are you shitting on the thing I like? Or why are you shitting on the thing I do? Or you think you're better than me, and it's really not.
I'm really sorry for... If our words offend anyone, I'm really sorry that they do. But on the other hand, I'm really sorry for whatever circumstances have brought them into a position where
you keep using different... you said them, and then use them as a different thing, but anyway.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah, you're really sorry that they are...
Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Being affected.
Yeah, it's a really sad array of events that brings you, in your culture, I guess your family's also affected by culture, but all
When you say your, you mean mine?
No.
Theirs?
Yes.
Oh. See? Confusing. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. So it's just sad. I'm sorry to irritate. I'm sorry that, ideas are hurtful to some people. It's not a nice thing to be afraid of thoughts. It's not a nice thing to go online and listen to a video and then it potentially actually ruining your childhood or anything. It sucks.
Do you think that's possible?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Because what I said earlier, when you associate things very, very easily, when you only live through associations and everything that you have is formed through association, something like, for example, a lot of your audience looks up to you, right? So what you say is a big chunk of what they take into account, right? You come from a position of power, of authority in their life, even if it's an online authority. But when you say, oh, I don't know, if you said, for example, McDonald's sucks, and they have a very strong association throughout their childhood with, yeah, I went to McDonald's and it was nice and I had fun and whatever, and you said McDonald's sucks. Now, everything will create a conflict in their feelings towards McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it can ruin it, because every time they'll think, oh, I'm going and I'm having fun, oh, but you know...
Wouldn't they just peg one or the other in the, like, oh, either they would side with McDonald's and no, I suck for dissing it, or they would side with me and say, oh yeah, I used to think McDonald's was good, but then...
No, it's not that easy. It's not that simple. And what they rest in... Because the thing is, when you're saying they're gonna side with something, it means that their own pillar, themselves... Their own self is strong enough to side with anything. However, when you live a life where you have icons or role models or no actual parental figures and no sense of self to be developed,
or the parental figures are also wrapped up in this, so they cannot...
Yeah,
they're more like, oh yeah, my mom's my best friend, instead of my mom...
Is my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't really develop much of a... Yeah, I'm gonna do this. Even though, oh, do your own thing, quest for your own happiness and whatever. So you don't get enough time to reflect on the things you like and why you like them. And there's also this huge fear of being on your own. Being, like, no, you find strength in numbers. You have to find like-minded people. You have to find a forum. You have to find a community. You have to go online and be regimented somewhere.
Yeah.
You have to be on a bandwagon because you're afraid of standing against other regimented communities.
So, this and more topics, like, perhaps. Unless this is a complete... like, if nobody watches it or it's all overwhelmingly negative, I suppose it's like, oh, okay, never mind.
I guess Bob's gonna watch it.
Let's hope.
If no one...
That's been known to not be the case. Hey, Bob, are you watching this?
Bob.
I really appreciate it if you are.
Please like, comment, and subscribe.
Sound like you said unsubscribe.
That's what you thought I was saying.
Yeah.
Slip.
Alright. So, that's that.
Yeah. That was that.
And, gonna stop. Bye.